guys, welcome back to the Brightside. Macy here, the Brightside girl, and today we're going to be doing my Brightside Book Award show. So I did this for the first time last year. Basically, I'm just going to be giving out some awards to my favorite characters, my favorite books, my favorite authors, and just having a really good time. In case you missed it, earlier today I uploaded my end of the year like bookish stats video, which is a little bit more nerdy, where I'm just going over like numbers of like how many pages I read, how many audiobooks. So I will link that video up in the cards as well as down below in the description in case you missed it, along with my top 10 books of the year. But for now, we're just going to start out giving some awards. So I got glam today since it's New Year's Eve. We're going to a party tonight, so I got a little bit extra glam than I normally do. I don't really have a particular order that I'm going to do this in, so we're just going to jump into what I have written down. Alright, so the best book of 2023 goes to a tie. We have Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies. I'm not going to go too into this because we talked about it in my top 10 of the year. This is an adult fae romance, but the romance is very like wholesome and sweet. There is excellent banter in here. There's a lot to do with fairies and different kind of fairies, and Emily Wilde is kind of studying them and writing an encyclopedia. It is so unique, it's so charming and funny. I loved it. And then also Vicious by V.E. Schwab, which is the exact opposite of Emily Wilde's, and this is a dark, gritty sci-fi adult novel. We have two best friends that are in this kind of prestigious school, and they're doing their thesis, and they decide to do it on extraordinary people and figure out whether you can actually become a person with like extraordinary abilities, and things just go wild and dark and twisted and gritty from there, and I loved it. So my best audiobook of the year is kind of surprising. That would go to Feed by, I think, M.T. Anderson. While I only gave this book like 3 stars in the end, the audiobook experience was phenomenal. I believe we have a full cast in here, and we have different sound effects and things that just kind of totally immerse you in the story, which is like my absolute favorite. So in this one, we actually get like commercials for the world. This is a sci-fi book. We're living in a world where you have like a feed in your brain. So basically everything you'd like see on Instagram and YouTube is just like inserted into your brain. You're at the mall, you'll literally get like a commercial that comes into your brain while you're passing by a certain store, and this is just kind of accepted, and then we kind of start to crumble as society as we learn more. And because of that, they did the audiobook this way, so you literally feel like you have this feed in your brain, and it's so obnoxious and annoying and stressful, which is exactly what the reading experience for the book needed to be. So when you get the commercials, you get like different voice actors, and they'll talk in a different way, and they'll be like, hey, stop by the store, and it just kind of jumps around a lot. I know for a lot of people it might be too intense or really annoying, but it served the purpose of what the book needed to do, and I absolutely loved it. I just didn't love the ending of this book, but the audio experience was top-notch. Award for the best new release of 2023, I have to give to Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies, and also The Grace of Wild Things, both by Heather Fawcett, who apparently is one of my new favorite authors. I loved both of these books. They both had like a coziness about them, but also a full plot and a lot of adventure and a lot of heart. I loved them so much, and I'm so glad I got to both of them this year. The award for my most listened to narrator is going to Ralph Lister, who does the Cirque du Freak series, because I finished this series last year. I listened to 12 audiobooks. I listened to Ralph quite a bit. He is a really fabulous narrator, and I feel like if it wasn't for him, I probably would not have finished this series, because it just makes them so immersive and fun. I always like to look and see my most listened to narrator. That makes my most read author Darren Shan, who also wrote the Cirque du Freak series, so I read 12 books from him as well. I did not love the ending of this series. I had kind of violent feelings about it that we'll probably talk about at some point in this video. Next, we have an award for the book I promoted most in 2023, and I was trying to think about one that I had like talked about more than others. Last year there was a very clear winner, but this year I think I'm gonna go with Rock, Paper, Scissors by Alice Feeney, because for like the first half of the year I would not stop talking about this book. I was new into the thriller game, and this was one of the first ones I read. It was such a good choice because it was so twisty and turny. It wasn't overly dark, I felt like. It didn't dive too much into the characters' past. The pacing was good, the narrators were great, so I feel like I talked about this one the most, but you guys will have to let me know if I talked about something else a little more. All right, award for the best fantasy book of 2023. I am actually going to give this to The Shadows Between Us by Trisha Levenseller. This didn't even make my top 10. I feel like out of all the actual true fantasy books that I read that weren't like cozy mysteries or sci-fi or some other element, this one was just a solid standalone fantasy. It had a really good romance. This is like a YA fantasy. We've got kind of like a dark prince type character in here, some really cool magic. I love Trisha Levenseller so much, so this kind of confirmed it for me. The best sci-fi read of 2023, I could give this to Vicious, but I'm actually going to give it to The Humans by Matt Haig. This was so charming and delightful. I read this for Galaxy-a-thon this year. This is about an alien that comes to Earth to kind of take out a human that learns a little bit too much about the alien race, and when he does so, he also has to clean up a mess that the human made, and so he winds up having to become the human and live his life while he kind of cleans up everything that's going on, and he learns about what it is to be human and have feelings and emotions and family, and it was just so like funny and charming and sweet, and I really loved it. Best middle grade of 2023 is The Grace of Wild Things by Heather Fawcett. This is the only middle grade I believe that made my top 10 list, and again, it was just so charming. This is Anna Green Gables retelling where our main character basically goes to live with a witch in the woods. It kind of has a Hansel and Gretel vibe as well, so we've got some spooky goodness in here, and our main character encompasses the feelings of Anne that we need, where she's dramatic and lovable and sweet, and this witch is like so annoyed with her. It is so funny, and the ending was so amazing. So love this one. Best series of 2023, and this one was tough because I finished like over 21 series this year, so I read a ton. I think I'm gonna go with the Nevernight trilogy. This was just so well-rounded overall. This is an adult fantasy trilogy, and it is very dark. It's about a girl that goes to assassin school, is a very loose description. It's very dark. We definitely have a little bit of spiciness in these three books, but I didn't mind it because the plot was so thoroughly well built. There were so many good twists and turns. Characters were morally gray and lovable, and the ending of the overall trilogy was just, got you right in the heartstrings. So really enjoyed this one. The funniest book that I read in 2023, I believe, is Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies, because I listened to the audio of this and I actually laughed out loud like 4 times. Not really geared as like a funny book, but the characters' banter and everything was so good that I just had like a smile on my face while I was listening to it the whole time, and I was like cracking up at one of the characters because he was just so hilarious. So I loved this book. Best thriller of 2023 is going to Rock, Paper, Scissors. Again, this was almost my favorite book of the year for like a while. This is about a couple that is kind of struggling in their marriage. They go to this Airbnb that's like in a church in the middle of nowhere in winter. It's got this cozy, snowy vibes about it, and they're trying to work on their marriage. And as you're learning about that, you're also jumping back in time and reading the wife's journal and what her thoughts are about their marriage. And so you're kind of getting back and forth information. It's done so well, so twisty, so turny, and I loved it. The most surprising book I read of 2023 was Vicious by V.E. Schwab, because I have like a weird relationship with Victoria Schwab. I talked about this a lot. I read This Savage Song and The Archived a few years ago, and I enjoyed them. I liked the story and the writing, but they had like a kind of more somber tone, and I just didn't fully connect with them. But then last year I read Gallant and Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, and I absolutely loved them. They both made my top 10. And then this year I physically read Vicious and Vengeful by her, and it just blew me away. I just was so shocked that I have been sitting on this book series for so long, and I literally still think about it. I'm gonna fangirl if we ever get a third book. Love it. My biggest disappointment of 2023 was the Cirque du Freak series, and If We Were Villains. We'll talk about Cirque du Freak first. I was just enjoying this vampire crossover between middle grade and YA series. Each book kind of has its own complete story, but we're still following along the same characters. We're following our character as he is becoming a vampire assistant and learning about the world and diving into the world and following this vampire around, and they all have these little plots. They were really good. They're short audiobooks. I think they're only 200-page physical books. I was just flying through them. It was on my unfinished series list, and it was just one I was gonna knock off. I was really enjoying them, and I just thought the end would be like fine and be like, yay, I read it. And then the ending kind of undid everything in the last 13 books, and it made me really angry because I was just like, why did I waste my time reading this whole thing for that to be the end? I felt like the books kind of got ahead of themselves and they didn't really know what was going to happen in the end the whole entire time, and so we had to kind of come up with an ending that was more suitable, and it was just very upsetting. It was very upsetting. This also happened to me when I read the Monsterologist series. The ending was just it made me mad. But I also was very disappointed by If We Were Villains because this is a book I've been meaning to read for years. So many people told me that I would love it. I thought it was going to be an easy 5-star, and it was just like a medium 3.5 star for me. It's about Shakespeare and a theater group in college and a bunch of kids and a murder and someone's in jail and you're learning about what actually happened the night that the person got murdered. But everyone was so unlikable and I felt like it was a little bit overly pretentious at times. I grew up doing a ton of Shakespeare. Very familiar with Shakespeare. I was in several plays, so I'm very invested in Shakespeare, and I felt like this book still had too many Shakespearean references in it. I felt like it was slow. I wasn't that satisfied with the ending. I just was disappointed by it overall. It was still a good book that I would recommend, but it was like a 3-star for me. The most unique book I read is actually Burning Midnight. And this one did not make my top 10, but it almost did. Apparently I have a thing for us finding things on Earth that are not supposed to be there and figuring out what's happening. We have this with Sleeping Giants. We have this with An Absolutely Remarkable Thing, which also made my top 10. And in this one on Earth, we find these spheres and they're different colors and they do different things. So they can literally give you the ability to run faster or to be smarter or to be prettier. And they have different abilities, but once you use them, I think that they're like used up and you can't do them anymore. Because we've been finding them, they just keep appearing. They all have different rarities. So people have started hunting and developed like hunting groups and trading groups and selling groups for these spheres, and no one really understands why they're there or how we need to use them or whether it's safe to use them, but we're doing them anyway. And it is so epic. The way this story went and the way the ending went, I just did not see coming. It almost made my top 10 because it was so good. I still think about it. I love it so much, and it's such a unique, never talked about book. Okay, now we're gonna jump into my award for the readathons. In case you're not familiar, I host 6 readathons every year. We do readathons a little bit different here. I'll have a full video coming out in the new year kind of explaining everything. I host them both on YouTube and on Instagram. There are so many fun ways to participate. I kind of treat them like reading parties. We go hard on the themes. We have songs and movies and everything. So it's not just about the reading, it's kind of about the overall vibes, but reading is always the top priority. Award for the best readathon overall, as far as the amount of people that participated, goes to Mermaid Marathon. This happens every year because it is the first one that I did and the most popular, even though it's kind of the most niche. So we read mermaid, island, pirate, oceany themed summer books, and we just have a really great time. But the best readathon overall for me was actually Hikeathon. I don't know why, it was just like my mood and the energy. I did a hike or a walk almost every day of the readathon. I got my videos up on time because I post every like 2 to 3 days during the readathon. I read a ton of books, and I just overall my mood and everything was so fun. I just love being like in nature. A lot more people participated. They have in past years. I got like a surge of new people that were really into like nature and hiking. So this readathon is all themed around staying healthy, but also like nature, and we have really fun reading challenges. So the idea is that reading is kind of a sedentary activity. So I kind of promote like listening to audiobooks while going on a walk or getting up and like moving your body after you read a few chapters. But we also have really fun challenges like elemental magic, books with a game element, and it's just really fun. I have big plans for this readathon next year, and it's the one that I'm looking forward to, I think, the most. Okay, so we're gonna go through the readathons. My best book that I read for Galaxyathon was The Humans by Matt Haig that we talked about earlier. This was in my top 10. I absolutely loved it. Then for Hikeathon, Emily Wilde's was one of the books that I read, but also This Vicious Grace. I had 2 that were in my top 10 during Hikeathon. That might have also been why I enjoyed the readathon so much. Then for Mermaid Marathon, my favorite book was Prince of Sea and Song, which was really shocking because sometimes these Disney books do not go over well for me. And this is a retelling of The Little Mermaid from Eric's perspective, and this is by Lindsay Miller. I believe she has one out now from Prince Philip's perspective in Sleepy Beauty that I really need to get to, and she's got another one coming out, I think, next year, 1 or 2. And they're just doing a whole like retelling based on the prince's perspective, but it was really, really well done. We even had some kind of ghosty vibes in here, and I just really, really enjoyed it. For Retoldathon, which is my readathon all themed around retellings, my favorite read was Grace of Wild Things, to no one's surprise. This one was just so excellent and blew me away. My favorite read for Not So Scary-a-thon was Vicious by V.E. Schwab. I originally wasn't sure if this would work for the readathon, but we start out and our main character is digging up bodies in a cemetery, so we were good to go. It's great for spooky season, but you definitely don't have to read around spooky season. It'll work for any time of the year. Absolutely loved it. And then my favorite read for Jingle Bellathon, which is my Christmas holiday winter themed readathon, I think was kind of a tie between The Santa Suit by Mary Kay Andrews. This is like an adult cozy fiction book about a woman that discovers a letter in a Santa suit in her new house that she has bought. She tries to track down the little girl that wrote the letter and kind of uncovers things about the history. And then The Christmas Cafe, I can't remember the author, but it'll be in the photo. And this again was just a charming, sweet book about a Christmas cafe, and they're trying to save it, and had a lot to do with baking and romance, but it was a more wholesome romance, and it was just really, really sweet and very festive. My favorite new author, and this goes to new author to me, has to go to Heather Fawcett, because I had never read anything from her even though I had some of her books, and 2 made my top 10, so this was just an author that I feel like is solidified as a favorite now, and I'm so excited to read more books from her. Favorite character is Victor from Vicious. He's like a cross between Kaz from Six of Crows and Warner from Shatter Me, and just all of those like morally gray, snarky boys that we absolutely love, but like secretly they have a good heart. Loved him so much. I could read from his perspective any day. He also kind of has like a Sherlock vibe about him, because he's a little bit on the colder side and doesn't like fully understand people, but when he does, it's excellent. Award for the best cover. This was hard because there were so many good ones, but I think we're gonna go with Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies, specifically the UK edition. I actually ordered this from Blackwell's, and I literally never order books new, but I just loved it so much with the mushrooms and the book, and it encompasses the feelings of the book so well. There were so many good covers though. I really liked a ton of them, including like Foxglove was stunning. And then my favorite couple of 2024 would go to Emily and a character in Emily Wilde's I Don't Want to Give It Away. The romance in here is so fun and so full of banter and so cute. And then This Vicious Grace by Emily Theed. The couple in here is also really fun and snarky and so lovable and adorable. So enjoyed both of these couples almost equally. All right, you guys, so I think that is everything for this award show. Let me know of any categories that you would like to see next year. Let me know if any of these books are going to make your TBR for 2024. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram at The Brightside Girl. I have a lot of bookish and some non-bookish content as well. Stay tuned for January. I have a ton of new videos coming out. There should be a January TBR up tomorrow, as well as a most anticipated and announcement for the readathon dates. We've got lots of exciting things happening. I hope you have a fabulous New Year's Eve, and I'll see you next time on The Bright Side in 2024. Bye!